Good afternoon. It's a little after 3 o'clock here in Washington, D.C. My name is Chip Gibbons. I'm the Policy Director for Defending Rights and Dissent. If you are not familiar with our work at Defending Rights and Dissent, we are a national civil liberties organization that defends your right to know and freedom to act through grassroots mobilization, public education, policy expertise, and advocacy journalism. Over our 6 decades of existence, this has frequently put us in contact with whistleblowers or other insiders who identify as truth tellers or just patriotic Americans, raising concerns about a range of abuses of power, from domestic surveillance to violations of the laws of war. As someone who has been in this position for almost 10 years now, September will be my decade with Defending Rights and Dissent. And what a quick decade it has been. I can say my greatest honor has been interviewing these truth tellers, whistleblowers, and patriots who have come forward to the American people because they believe they have a right to know what's being done in their name, as well as that they believe, as I do, that truth can still enact change. Today, we're joined by Anthony Aguilar. He is a retired lieutenant colonel who was with the United States Army Special Forces as a Green Beret for 25 years. He worked with UG Solutions, who we're going to learn more about in a minute, who are a subcontractor for the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. He resigned and is now speaking out about what he witnessed in hopes to change U.S. foreign policy. Anthony, it is my great honor and privilege to be joined by you today.
Thank you. It's a privilege to be here, and thank you for what you do and for giving us a voice.
Of course. I know you're very adamant, like most people in your situation I've interviewed, that you're not the story, the atrocity is the story. But I just want to start by giving the audience a little bit of information about your background. You were in the military for 25 years. I believe you received a Bronze Star and a Purple Heart. Could you briefly tell us a little bit about your background with the American military?
So I have a pretty extensive experience in the military, in the conflicts that the United States has been involved in. Upon my initial joining the Army, first coming into the Army, I found myself deployed to Mosul, Iraq, within a few months of commissioning, and I was already leading men in combat, leading in war. I was an infantry officer, and after I finished Ranger School, I was on the next flight heading over to with my unit into Iraq. So a total of 12 deployments, 9 combat deployments, 12 operational support deployments, 4 different wars: the Operation Enduring Freedom Philippines, Operation Enduring Freedom Afghanistan, Operation Iraqi Freedom, and Operation Inherent Resolve in Syria and Iraq again. So in my 25 years, I've experienced quite a bit. What I would say, that I wouldn't say it makes me an expert, but it makes me credible in terms of what I've seen in Gaza, and that I know what I'm talking about. And for people that want to provide a counter argument to that, I would ask, okay, what credibility do you bring to the table? If we're going to have a discussion, what do you bring to the table in terms of experience? So from my experience and what I've seen in my 25 years of service, one thing I'll mention, I joined the Army when I was 17. I wasn't even old enough to vote yet. Raised my right hand to swear and defend the Constitution of the United States before I was even old enough to vote. In my entire time in the military, 25 years, I have never voted in a U.S. election. I have maintained complete apolitical position where my opinions as a military officer do not persuade or enter into my professional career. So now that I'm retired, the next presidential election will be the first presidential election I've ever voted in. So for people that think I'm political, that I have a political position, or I'm left or right or up or down or blue or red, false.
I mean, and since speaking out, you've done an incredible range of media. You've done Tucker Carlson and Scott Horton. You've also done Democracy Now! And Zateo. So you've really run the gamut of left and right. And I think it also speaks to the horror across the political spectrum when you have people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Rashida Tlaib speaking out about what's happening in Gaza. It shows this is very much a human issue. So you worked for UG Solutions.
Correct.
Could you explain a little about who is UG Solutions? What is their relationship with the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, and how did you come to work with them?
So the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation is the overarching name of this humanitarian assistance mechanism. There is no body, there's no tooth to the GHF in terms of actually existing as a real thing. If I were to describe them, I would describe the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation as a money laundering scheme. Underneath the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, for the execution of the actual contract, the actual muscle behind the mechanism, so to speak, is Safe Reach Solutions. Safe Reach Solutions is a for-profit company. They are not doing this as a nonprofit. They are for profit. They are making money by contract in doing this. And that organization is led by Mr. Phil Riley, who is a former career Special Activities Division chief in the CIA. So we have a former CIA Special Activities Branch chief that is running humanitarian assistance in Gaza. Underneath Safe Reach Solutions as the prime contract, there is UG Solutions is one of the companies that's specifically been hired onto the contract to provide armed security. So I did not work for GHF. I did not work for SRS. I work specifically on contract as a contractually obligated independent contractor under UG Solutions. So that was who I worked for. Prior to them calling me on the 13th of May, asking me if I was interested in working for them, I had never heard of them. So I had to do some research. There's very little to be known about the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. They have no website. They do not advertise their credentials or their financials or anything like that. So that's very little is known about them. And to be honest, I don't know anything about them either, except who is the CEO or who is the director. Safe Reach Solutions, same, not much known about them. And the same for UG Solutions, not much known about them, except the person in charge, the guy in charge of the entire contract for UG Solutions. So I want America to hear this. The person in charge who is spending taxpayers' dollars, who is responsible for the spending of taxpayers' dollars, who is responsible for American lives, and responsible for the delivery of humanitarian aid under UG Solutions in Gaza, is a chapter president of the Infidels Motorcycle Club.
What is
who
that?
Also was, so the Infidels Motorcycle Club is a fraternal organization. It's a motorcycle club, exactly what it states. It's a motorcycle club that consists of former veterans and former contractors, paramilitary contractors, and they are very. Their position is anti-Muslim, anti-Arab. They proclaim to be the modern crusaders. Their emblem is a crusader cross. The leader of this organization, who's also the leader in charge of this contract in Gaza, brandishes a 1095 tattoo proudly across his chest. 1095 was the first Crusades, but a 1095er, if you will, believes the eradication of Muslims as a religion and of Arabs from the earth. That is what they believe in. So you have a guy that proclaims this, who is in charge of delivering humanitarian aid to a Muslim Arab population, primarily Muslim, but an Arab, predominantly Muslim population at the end of a gun. And this is the person that we entrust with $30 million of taxpayers' money on behalf of the United States. I would like anybody listening, take pause and think about that.
I mean, it's totally shocking. I had never heard of the Infidels Motorcycle Club until a few weeks ago when you and I met when you were in Washington, D.C.
I hadn't heard of them either. I didn't know about them until we were there, and I saw quite a few of the contractors with these Crusader crosses with infidels, and I thought to myself, like, why do so many of these guys have the same tattoo and everything? And I was then explained to me that it's a motorcycle club, and I was like, oh. So I looked them up, and I was like, yeah, sure enough. I mean, this is an organization that annually they have a pig roast on Ramadan. This is an organization that proclaims that Israel is the chosen nation and shall triumph over all. This is an organization that believes themselves to be the modern day crusaders. And these are the people in Gaza delivering aid armed. And we wonder why there's so many people dying around the sites. Doesn't take much to put those pieces together.
So I just want to back up. So you are a subcontractor. Did you ever interact with anyone from the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation?
No.
No, never. Did you ever interact with someone from Safe Reach Solutions?
Daily.
Daily? Okay. Did you ever interact with someone from the Israeli government, including Israeli soldiers?
Daily.
Daily?
For Safe Reach Solutions, who was the overall contract lead. Again, UG Solutions was a subcontract under Safe Reach Solutions. So Safe Reach Solutions, if you're building a house, Safe Reach Solutions would be the contractor. UG Solutions would be the subcontractor putting in the plumbing. So that same architecture as contract, subcontract. But SRS as the primary contract, the IDF were the client. The IDF, Safe Reach Solutions, and all entities therein worked for the IDF. We were employed. The IDF was our client in this contract.
So you're over there allegedly assisting the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, but you're being told your client is the Israeli military.
Told with zero equivocation, told directly to me in my face, very sternly, that the IDF are our client. We work for them.
And no one has ever seen anyone from this Gaza Humanitarian Foundation in Gaza. They're just a total.
So what's interesting is that the former director of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, prior to Mr. Johnny Moore, was an individual named Jake Wood. On the 26th of May, the very first day of operations, Mr. Jake Wood stood down. He couldn't be a part of it. He stood down in protest to the concerns he had of the ability to actually do this operation in a humane way. Johnny Moore took over. Johnny Moore has been to Gaza once. He showed up once in mid-June, halfway through June about, for basically a photo shoot. He showed up. He was there for one afternoon. In Israel, he went into Gaza to one of the sites for about 20 minutes, got a photo, and left. That's the only time anyone from GHF has been to Gaza. So if they're in charge of the entire thing, where are they?
That's a very good question. Did you ever interact in Gaza with someone from the U.S. government? I know the State Department has been very involved in promoting this entity, and I'm still trying to figure out, are they a front for the Israelis? Are they a front for the U.S.? Who are they? So did you have any interaction, not with former government officials, but with current ones in Gaza?
No, and in fact, representative or the whatever Witkoff's position is, Mr. Envoy Witkoff,
yes,
and Ambassador Huckabee, in my time there, hadn't come there once, and from what I understand, haven't gone into Gaza at all until 2 weeks ago. They went in after I came on the record to speak of what was going on. They then decided to take a trip again, another photo op opportunity, and I welcome anybody to go back and look at the photos that Witkoff of Witkoff and Ambassador Huckabee taken at the site. Look at the photos. They brought out artificial grass turf to lay a beautifully set meeting area for them. They spent money on signs of celebration, of advertising, like a used car sales lot. Look how many meals we've sold, or how many meals we've distributed. So the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation spent money, taxpayers' dollars. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation spent your money, America, to buy artificial turf, to lay out a intimate display for Ambassador Huckabee and Mr. Witkoff, and then spent your money, America, on signs to advertise for their business like a used car lot. Think about it. Go look at the pictures that were taken by the State Department posted on Huckabee's website, that were taken by GHF and posted on their website. That should make all of us sick. It's disgusting. It's a charade. It's a circus. So I never spoke to or worked with any representative of the United States government in any capacity at all in Gaza. And the only time anyone from the United States government has gone into Gaza is after I made this story on the record and they went for a photo op.
So that's very troubling. Everything you've said has been extraordinarily unsettling. You, as you talked about at the beginning, you have extensive experience with combat, with war zones. When did you first actually cross into Gaza? What did you see, and what was your reaction?
The first day I went into Gaza with the very, very first select group of people to go into Gaza with the IDF to conduct a reconnaissance of the sites. So from the 24th onward until I resigned on the 13th of June, I had been in Gaza every day. On the 24th, we did a reconnaissance, or a tour, if you will, of the sites, because no Americans had seen the sites at all. On the 24th of May, we were supposed to start distribution operations that day. It got delayed to the 26th, but that's the day we were supposed to start. And up until that day, not one American had stepped foot on nor seen the sites. That's troubling. So on the 24th of May, I was sitting in the front middle seat of these armored vehicles that we had, and we drove into Gaza. And there was only a select few of us escorted by the IDF. And it became clear to me why the Israeli government doesn't want to let reporters or the UN or anyone else into Gaza. It became apparent to me. It is an apocalyptic wasteland that has gone far beyond international humanitarian laws of proportionality and specificity and proper targeting. It is a war crime, what is happening in Gaza. What I saw in terms of the destruction of Rafah, which is leveled to the ground, hospitals, schools, mosques, homes, leveled to the ground, not one building stands, death all around. I have never in my military career, 25 years in the Army, 4 wars and 12 combat deployments, or 12 deployments overall to these places, never have I seen nor witnessed this level of destruction and disproportionate use of force. Ever. Nothing compares to it.
And you were in really heavy combat zones before. For people who aren't familiar, I mean, Rafah, there was not light bombing in Rafah. And you're saying that even with what you've seen, nothing compares to what you witnessed in Gaza.
Nothing, not even close. And to include when, I was in Mosul in the early days of the war in Iraq. I was in Mosul again in the later days in 2019. Went to Mosul, and this is post fight of ISIS, pushing ISIS out of Mosul into northern Syria. And even that destruction pales in comparison to what I witnessed in Gaza. What I witnessed in Gaza made me speechless. I felt sick to my stomach. I felt sorry for us as humans. I felt sorry for humanity, that this is something that the world is allowing and that this is something that the world is accepting. Made me sick to my stomach.
So you mentioned that no Americans had seen the aid sites. Who built the aid sites then?
So and this is where, I feel like there's like this scheme going on, is that the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation doesn't touch any of the money.
Okay.
It goes directly to Safe Reach Solutions.
Okay.
Safe Reach Solutions turn around with the money they were given from the contracts, from the donors, the $30 million in money from the State Department. It went to GHF, but GHF doesn't touch the money. So then it went to SRS. SRS contracted the IDF to build the sites and choose where the sites went. So Safe Reach Solutions with the IDF through Kogat said, Kogat, which is a Ministry of Defense entity in Israel, basically SRS got the money and then contracted. So the Israeli government gave gave the money to GHF, which they didn't touch, and directed directly to Safe Breach Solutions, who then paid the Israeli government to the IDF to then build the sites, because they're the only ones that could build it. They're the only ones that are operating in Gaza. There's no, so they contracted to this company called LMCC, which is a Israeli company, and the IDF went in and then built these sites. So the IDF picked where they would go, and the IDF built them in the way that they're configured using American money.
So the American government gave taxpayer money to a supposed nonprofit humanitarian foundation, which gave the money to a for-profit contractor with, let's just say, some questionable credentials, who then gave it to the Israeli military. Am I understanding this chain correctly?
You are tracking 100% correctly.
Because I feel crazy saying that out loud, but it's
and that's what I say. That's why I want America to hear the truth, because when you hear it out loud, no one should put up for that. Nobody. I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat or a Libertarian or you're up, down, left, or right. No one should put up with that.
So in Gaza, what was your exact role at these aid sites?
I was initially hired by UG Solutions specifically as a security operator, meaning I would be either on a site or on the mobile team delivering or distributing aid, one of the two. They hadn't decided yet on what our specific positions would be. We arrived into Israel on the 19th. On the 21st, so I should say on the 20th, I had noted and expressed some critical shortcomings in the planning. None of the contractors knew where the sites were, where we were going, what we were going to see, what the layout was. So I voiced some concerns to the leadership on the 20th of May. I was then given the responsibility of, oh, well, since you brought up these issues, can you put that plan together? And I did. And I briefed it on the 21st of May. So then they promoted me. They promoted me from just standard security operator to being the joint tactical operations team leader. So I was in charge of the operations out of the operations center, and the planning and coordination of operations from the operations center. So they promoted me. I was then promoted again on the 29th, offered a promotion after the second in command of the entire contract resigned in protest. From UG Solutions, resigned in protest over what he saw as criminal. They offered me that job. I thought about it, accepted it, and then within a few hours of accepting that job, I declined. All right, I asked, I would like to go back to being in charge of operations, because they didn't put anybody to fill me in the operations position, so none of it was getting planned. So I was like, hey, this second in command position, it's nice, thanks for the promotion, but I need to be back in this job because that's not getting done. So they agreed to that, and I was put overall as the operations director, and they continued to pay me at the promotion level because they wanted me to stay. Because at that point, I had already seriously considered resigning at that point because of the things that I had experienced.
What did you experience? What did you witness at these sites?
Well, on the 28th of May first of all, let's just go to the very, very first day of distribution. Sure. 27th of May, site number 1, overrun by 30 to 35,000 starving Palestinians. That's a risk. I mean, regardless of the level of threat or not, that's a risk to the civilians. That's a risk to the IDF. That's a risk to us as the contractors. Unbelievable risk, insurmountable amount of risk that the leadership took no concern in trying to rectify. On the 28th, I was at site number 3, secure distribution site 3, which is in southern Khan Yunis, and witnessed a group of civilians that was leaving the site being shot at, and civilians that were killed, gravely injured, wounded, and or killed. On the 29th of May, at distribution site 4, further in the north and central Gaza near the Netzarim corridor, I witnessed a UG Solutions contractor open fire, a sustained rate of fire, into a civilian population. That's the video that most have seen, where you hear the individual say, "Woohoo!" And then the other contractor responds with, "I think you got one." And then that contractor that was shooting responds with, "Hell yeah, boy." So I witnessed that on the 29th. So by that point, I had serious concerns about continuing part of this mission with things not being addressed. So when I was offered the position to be the number 2 guy in charge, I said, if taking this position, I need the authority, the responsibility and the authority to make certain changes. For example, I need to have the authority to work with the lawyers from SRS or UG Solutions, whomever, to draft a rules of engagement and a standard operating procedure. We don't have that. I can't draft that. I'm not a lawyer. I can recommend, but a lawyer should review that. Well, they didn't want to spend the money on a lawyer to review that, so they didn't do one. So at that point, I was like, I want to stay on the mission because I felt that my skills and experience were critical to the continuation of it. So I asked to maintain my position in an operations role.
I think you muted, Tony. I think you were muted.
Oh, so can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
You went silent for a minute.
I'm sorry. There was a call coming in that I had to drop. But
Oh.
yeah, I wanted to stay involved in the mission because I did believe in the goodness of the mission, feeding starving people. And I knew that I wanted to stay in that operational role because that's where I would have the greatest impact in terms of planning, resourcing, and that I could better influence the outcome. So that was my initial thought then. Every day that I was there, from the very first day when Jake Wood, the director of GHF, quit on day 1, it started to put some serious doubts in the back of my head as to what we were doing and why. From that day forward, every day was a struggle to not want to resign and just come home. But I realized that to just walk away from it would be irresponsible because that it's so needed people with experience and planning experience, of which I had. There's a lot of things in this world that I am not good at. But when it comes to planning, coordinating, and resourcing, I did it for 25 years successfully. So I felt that I can contribute. But it was hard. It was hard to stay on and work for that company.
The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation will oftentimes retort to criticism that they're delivering X number of meals or they're the only people on the ground providing aid. What type of aid are they providing? Is it sufficient? How are these sites run in terms of distributing the actual needed aid to the Palestinian people?
Well, what I would like to first say is that the GHF saying, well, we're the only ones doing it. Well, no, duh, bozo. You said you were going to be the only ones to do it. They say it like it's some act of mercy or that they're doing it out of the kindness of their hearts. One, they're getting paid a lot of money to do this contract, SRS and UG Solutions. So to say that they're the only ones doing it, well, that's the contract they signed. They agreed to that. That's like, if someone's building, back to the analogy of someone's building your house, and they say, yeah, we can do it. And then they show up and you're like, man, why is my house not being built? Well, we're the only ones working on it. You're like, yeah, that's what I'm paying you for. Like, no, duh. So it's very concerning that they have that rhetoric of we're the only ones doing it. Number one, that's what you signed up for in the contract. You obligated yourself to that. So you ain't getting a tear from me. Two, the celebration, if you will. So by contract, the contractual obligation that, and I know this for a fact because being in charge of operations, I had asked the SRS leadership, what's our goal? What's our milestone? What are we trying to achieve? Just delivering food every day? Like, what are we trying to achieve? And it was expressed to me that within 45 days of operating, from day 1 to 45 days, that this mechanism would meet at least half of the capacity of what the UN was doing, because GHF is advertising themselves to be the replacement for the UN. Within 90 days, end of contract, by 21 August, we would be delivering at the capacity or exceeding that of the UN. So just to give everybody an idea of that, the United Nations, regardless of the, let's just talk about the facts that they were running 400 sites a day, delivering on average 500 to 550 trucks a day. And I have seen people push back to that and saying 500 trucks a day would be a truck every 2 minutes. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Between Erez crossing, Sakah crossing, Rafah crossing, the Nakal Oz crossing, 6 different crossing points, hundreds of trucks going in at a time. Yeah, you're right. It was a truck every 2 minutes. So thank you for that math. And you're right. That is what they were doing. UG Solutions is doing 18 trucks average per day at 4 sites. And right now, one of the sites, site number 1, is under construction. 3 sites, 18 trucks a day. So they're not even meeting the obligations of the contract that they're getting paid for. And that's why I want to remind people, this isn't some benevolent organization that's doing this out of the kindness of their heart. They're getting paid, and they're being paid with U.S. taxpayers' dollars. So keep that in mind when they talk about these numbers and they talk about they're the only ones doing it. That's what they're getting paid to do. The numbers. This is something that I want to break down for everybody. As of today, they are proclaiming, this was just yesterday in a press conference by Chapin Fay, who's the spokesman of GHF. 117 million meals. Well, the population of Gaza, of which is our pacing mechanism, our pacing item, if you will, is 2.12 million. 2.2 million, considering those that have died, 2.12 million. 2.12 million, 3 meals a day, and you've only delivered 117,000 meals 117 million meals in the 80 days. Let's see, 10 more days in the contract. So yeah, in 80 days, that's only 14.5 days, not even 14.5, 13.9. So 14 days of food. What happened to the other 66 days of food? Even if you were to break down those meals to where 1 meal a day, that's still only 1 meal every 1.5 days. Each meal. And I would welcome anybody from the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation to sit down, bring a box and sit down, and we'll go through it live on the air. Because I've seen it, and I've done it, and I've touched it. I've opened up the box on site when people were there, and I took pictures of each item. The total caloric intake in 1 box, and this is using GHF's numbers, 1 box feeds 5 people 3 meals a day for 3.5 days. That's 52.5 meals in 1 box. When you open up that box and you count all the calories of the whole thing in there, and the other tricky part is they say total calories, you have to calculate it by after cooking. All of these things have to be cooked. So after cooking, caloric intake per box is 200 calories a meal. So even if we were giving them 3 meals a day, that's only 600 calories. The rate of which they delivered food at 117 million meals over the last 80 days, 1.5 meals a day, they're getting 200 calories every day and a half at most, and we're giving them no water whatsoever. So if Johnny Moore wants to celebrate that statistic, I would call him evil. That would be like if your children were at school and the teacher came to you and said, hey, your child seems to be like, it looks like they're not eating. Like, are you feeding your children? Hell yeah, I'm feeding them. Every Wednesday, I feed them a bag of crackers. You would go to jail and your children would be taken away from you. The humanitarian assistance mission in Gaza should be taken away from GHF. They are not responsible to do it.
You mentioned there's no water. Is there a reason they're not providing water?
Cost.
Cost.
We do not provide them any water. And I asked this, not just myself, but other contractors asked this pointedly from day one. All of the items that we're giving them require, not just to mention that we should just be giving them water, period. It's a pretty critical component of life. But everything that we're giving them in this box of food requires water to cook it. Dried beans, dried rice, dried lentils, dried pasta. And we're not giving them any water? How are they cooking the food we're giving them? Well, the water is not our responsibility. It's not in the contract. What? It's not in the, and that's another point as to why humanitarian assistance shouldn't be done by a private profit-making company under a contract. So we didn't do it because one truck equivalent of water would have to be broken down by 3 trucks because of the weight. One truck couldn't carry a full load. So for the equivalent of 1 truck of water, it'd have to be broken down between 3 trucks for delivery, which their comparison is that, well, we can do 3 trucks of food vice 1 truck of water, because the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, their requirement, their deliverable, if you will, is numbers of meals. So they're not concerned about water at all. So we're giving them just think about that, America. How evil and inhumane is that? We're giving starving people who have no water. They don't have a municipal system of water. Those were blown up months ago. What are they supposed to do? Go fetch seawater and boil it? How are they going to boil it? You know what I mean? I mean, every solution to this doesn't make sense.
And the reason for the water is they're saving on cost. Are there other instances where you saw these for-profit contractors doing things to sort of hinder the delivery of what's supposed to be humanitarian aid paid for in U.S. taxpayer money via what is supposed to be a humanitarian foundation cutting cost or cutting corners in order to line their pockets? Are there other instances of this besides the water?
Another instance I'll bring into point. So under the contract, SRS, as the overall handler of the contract, the sites themselves, the construction, the material, the building of them is part of the contract. They're getting paid to do it. But the IDF built them all. Another aspect I remember clearly in my mind, because this is another clear violation of the Geneva Convention. After the first day, we realized that the sites weren't very secure. So to call them a secure distribution site is a misnomer, because they're not secure. I would call them DDSs, dangerous distribution sites is what I'd rename them to. But they decided, the SRS leadership and the UG Solutions leadership decided that we needed to surround the entire site, and up on the berms, that we needed to surround all of that. And I still have this in my notepad when the senior SRS guy drew it out for me. I still have it, the date and everything, because I was responsible for operations. So he draws this out. We're going to wrap the entire site and do all the berms in barbed wire. I was like, okay, well, there's 3 types of barbed wire, sir. There's your old-fashioned barbed wire that Uncle John uses on the farm. There's concertina wire, which militaries use for obstacles and for controlling movement. Very expensive. Where are we going to get it? Oh, we're going to get it from the IDF. They're going to give it to us. Oh, they are. Huh. So we're not paying for it. The IDF is giving it to us. When I went to the site with the IDF that was emplacing the wire, I was there, witnessed it being put in place, and it's still there. It's razor wire, not concertina wire, not barbed wire, razor wire. Razor wire is specifically mentioned verbatim in the Geneva Convention, that razor wire cannot be used to secure an area or prevent a civilian population from servicing that area. Schools, mosques, hospitals, clinics, food distribution points. And they're using it outright, blatantly. War crime. And they're not paying for it because the IDF is giving it to them. So they're cutting costs everywhere they can. Signage. That's another. I suggested from the second day of distribution, I said, instead of shooting at the crowd to communicate with them, instead of shooting at their feet or shooting over their head or however you want to call it with warning shots, what I think would be a great approach would be we put signs up. We put signs out there, like put a sign out there that says go this way or go that way. And then, or we use a loudspeaker system with an interpreter that's speaking their language. That would go a long way. No, we're not going to spend money on that. Okay. And the reason we're so, people would say, well, bullets cost a lot more than that. You are right. And we were getting all of our ammunition from the IDF. So they didn't have to pay for it.
I want to go back to something you just said. You said they were shooting at the crowd to communicate with them. Could you elaborate a little bit more on that? And what types of weapons were they firing at the crowd to quote unquote communicate with them?
Okay, so weapons. Again, SRS weren't armed. GHF people doesn't really exist, weren't armed. UG Solutions are the only people authorized under the contract to be armed. UG Solutions personnel, every contractor was equipped with an IWI. It's a brand and is an Israeli weapons manufacturer, Israeli Weapons Incorporation or Israeli Weapons Industry, something like that. IWI, Israeli weapons manufacturer, provided us all the weapons, fully automatic, assault style rifles called the Arad. The IWI Arad rifle is an assault rifle, fully automatic. We had that. We had an IWI Jericho pistol, 9mm, which is their version of a combat pistol. We also had the Mitah shotgun from IWI. Not everybody got a shotgun, but they were on every site for contractors to use to fire these rubber stun bullets, these rubber stun shot. And then every site had 4 IWI brand Negev fully automatic machine guns, a 7.62 millimeter machine gun. So anybody out there that has military experience or experience in weapons, this would be equivalent to the Mike 240 machine gun, the M240 Bravo machine gun that the United States uses. This was similar to that, but an Israeli variant. And then every vehicle had a machine gun to mount onto the vehicles if there was security needed. So armed pretty darn heavy. And everybody was also equipped with stun grenades, 2 types of stun grenades. One of the types of stun grenade would explode with a loud bang and a flash of light and would emit tear gas. Another one of the stun grenades, once it was thrown and exploded, would emit bright light, stunning audible, and these pellets, these rubber pellets, stun grenade is what it was called. And tear gas canisters that shot out of a weapon that was designed to shoot these 37mm canisters. Riot batons, what you often see law enforcement with, the steel batons that flick them out and they make a baton. Pepper spray, sprayable in the hand, pepper spray. And they also, it's called the MK47, the Mark 47 from Defense Industries. OC spray, pepper spray, blaster, if you will. It's about the size of a fire extinguisher, and it has like a nozzle like a fire extinguisher, and you spray it and it just emits this giant cloud of pepper spray. Everybody was equipped with all of that stuff. So when you think about how we were equipped, does that sound like humanitarian aid?
No, it sounds like an occupying army. And you said they were communicating by shooting at the crowd.
Yes, let's go back to that point. So this
Yes.
communication by shooting, that's not what I call it. I've called it that because that's what the IDF called it. That's what GHF has called it. If you go back and look at GHF's 14-minute smear piece on me, they say, well, Mr. Aguilar claims that we shoot at the crowd. UG Solutions have used their weapons, but they only use them to communicate with the crowd by shooting at their feet, over their heads, or sometimes towards the coastline. And I've saved that video because I'm going to use that as evidence in an international criminal court case, as evidence of the on the record admittance of a war crime. Shooting at an unarmed civilian population at their feet, over their head, shooting at them in their direction at all is a violation of the protocols of the Geneva Convention. Clearly, verbatim, it states it. Verbatim. And when they say,
live ammunition they're shooting, or is these like rubber?
Oh no, this is live. So the machine guns, the rifles, and the pistols all had live ammunition. There's no such thing as a dummy round or a rubber round when it comes to a high caliber automatic weapon. These are bullets that kill, bullets that, a warning shot is the same thing as a normal shot, just depends on what you call it. A warning shot will kill somebody just the same if it hits them. But then they also said, and he says this, Mr. Panzer says it very clearly in that video, that they also shoot in the air towards the coastline. What is on the coastline? What is on the coastline of Gaza? Hundreds of thousands of displaced Palestinians. The internally displaced camp of Mawasi or the Nasser camp is on the coastline. The people that queue up to come to these sites in the south have to travel the coastal road to come to the Marag corridor to get to the site. There are tens of thousands of Palestinians at the coastline. So when you say flippantly that, oh, we just shoot towards the coastline, okay, you're killing people.
No, that is stunning. That instead of buying signs like a normal person would do, you shoot live ammunition out of a machine gun at people's feet and say you're communicating with them. I don't think most people, if someone was shooting at them with a machine gun, would feel like that was communication.
It is abhorrent. And every American that hears that, and again, this is not me saying it. This is what they've said. I'm only conveying what they've said. Okay, do you shoot at the crowd? Well, we don't shoot into the crowd. We shoot at their feet and over their head and into the air. Okay, well, you just admitted in clear, unequivocal statement that you commit war crimes.
I mean, you were there to provide security, and you're describing very heavily used weapons. Obviously, when you have a starving population, a population has been deliberately starved, I will point out, and you're limiting and rationing what type of food they can then get as aid, you do have a risk of stampede or something like that. What is the security threat to these sites? Did you ever feel unsafe from the Palestinians while you were there? Did you ever face any dangers? And where did those dangers come from?
There is not actually the danger that I experienced was from UG Solutions contractors with negligent use of their armaments. Never in the entire time that I was there at all 4 sites, distribution, delivery, drop off, truck escorting, not once did I ever see anybody from Hamas. How do you know who is Hamas in the crowd? They don't wear a Hamas t-shirt. They don't all get together and say, hey guys, let's wear our bandanas today. How do you know? You don't. And that's part of the risk. And by God, you accepted that risk. In Iraq, when we were fighting the insurgency in Al-Qaeda, did Al-Qaeda wear a uniform? No. They blended in with the population. And if someone shot at us from a crowd and we couldn't identify the shooter, did that give us justification to just mow down the entire crowd of civilians? Absolutely not. That would be an abhorrent war crime because it is a war crime. So to do this in Gaza is no different. Why should it be different? Because they're Palestinians? Because Israel said so? Because the IDF said that we could do it? America doesn't get led around pulled by the ear by an ally and told what to do. It's not what America does. We set the standard. So the armament and the use of weapons, I never experienced not one time ever, and I spent hours and days on these sites, did I ever witness a threat. The only time our men experienced some kind of lethal threat, on one night, the IDF were shooting. They were on high ground and they were shooting at a crowd of Palestinians at night. And because they weren't controlling their fire, some of those bullets were hitting inside the distribution site, inside site number 1. And the guys on site number 1, this is at night, called and were like, hey, can someone radio to the IDF and tell them to stop shooting at us? So there was that. Numerous occasions, I was hit in the face with tear gas fired by a UG Solutions contractor, not because there was a threat, but to get the people to leave. On one occasion, when a UG Solutions contractor threw a stun grenade, one of the stun grenades that does the explosion and tear gas, the shrapnel from the exploding grenade, these grenades are not meant to be thrown into a crowd. They're meant to be thrown away from the crowd. They emit an effect. They're not made to blow up in a crowd. And in fact, the manufacturer's warning says, don't do that. But this individual threw it in the crowd, it detonated, shrapnel went into my forearm. I had to get that treated. And the metal fused off of this grenade, and anybody that's familiar with smoke grenades, stun grenades, all of them, regardless of what the body is made out of, have a metal screw fuse on top where the explosive goes in when you pull the pin and the spoon pops and you throw it. Anybody knows this that has experience with these. And that metal top, that metal plug, if you will, hit this woman in the side of the head and killed her. So the only threat that I ever saw to the population or from the population, or any threat that I perceived at all, was either from the IDF or from UG Solutions contractors acting negligently.
Doctors Without Borders has described the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation as slaughter disguised as aid. You've said the sites are designed as death traps. Could you explain what you mean by that?
The distribution sites were intentionally, purposely built in operational combat areas. Now, for those that aren't familiar with what that means or what the difference is all of Gaza is the entire enclave a war zone? Yes, it is. When I was in Baghdad, was all of Iraq a war zone? Yes, it was. But was there active offensive combat going on in every part of Baghdad or every part of Iraq? No, there was not. Just like in Gaza, there are not active combat operations going on all throughout Gaza. But where there are combat operations going on, Operation Gideon's Chariots, which just culminated about 4 days ago, but started in March, they built these sites in the engagement areas within the active offensive combat area. That's a war crime. There are so many other places they could have put the sites. They could have put them off of the military corridors. They could have put the site near the Mawasi camp on the coast. They could have put the sites in the cities. Why they chose to put them to the furthest possible location south where there are no people, and any people that want to get to them would have to walk 8 to 10 kilometers one way. And along their journey, they get shot at by warning shots and mortar rounds and tank rounds on the way to get there and on their way back. And while they're there, they get hit in the face with pepper spray and stun grenades, and some of them get killed by errant, irresponsible weapons fire. They didn't become death traps. They were built as death traps. They were death traps from day one.
One of, I think, the questions that a lot of people have is you've seen the Israelis sort of starve the Palestinians, limit food aid, and then they bring them to these aid sites where large numbers of Palestinians are killed. I believe we've now reached the point where more Palestinians have been killed at these aid sites than Israeli civilians were killed on October the 7th. There's this sense or allegation that this isn't an accident. This is a deliberate sort of plot to lure people in with aid and then kill them. Do you think the killing of civilians at these sites is intentional, or do you think it's negligence? Do you think it's brought on by, poorly trained people, a profit motive? What do you think is going on? What did you witness in terms of the killing of Palestinians?
The behavior of the IDF and of the UG Solutions contractors is primarily the result of lack of training and lack of experience. Are there some contractors that have a lot of experience that are on this job? Sure. Not many at all. Are there people that may have experience in other operations, have experience to something of this magnitude? Very, very few of us. There was probably like maybe 3 of us out of the whole contract that had experience at this level as leaders responsible in planning. And one of those guys quit on the 2nd day. The other guy quit on the 6th day. The deputy director of operations for Safe Breach Solutions, who was a Marine infantry commander in Fallujah, that's experience. He quit. It was abhorrent to him. This man saw Fallujah and thought that what was going on in Gaza was too much to take. Just keep that in mind. So the predominant reason for the shooting and the killing is negligence, a lack of training, a lack of experience, and just ignorance. And I don't say ignorance as an offensive term. I mean ignorance in the terms of not knowing. However, there is a small portion that I believe, not only that I believe, that I know, but then I also believe, I don't know what the IDF intentions are, but based on the shooting that I've witnessed and the sustained shooting from a machine gun or from a tank, That's intentional. It's not an accident. You don't accidentally lay on the trigger for 2 minutes straight of shooting. In fact, you have to reload to do that. That's deliberate. The UG Solutions contractors, I can't speak for all of them. I don't know, but I do know that on the 29th of May, and I will say this with absolute certainty, when I witnessed that contractor on the berm shoot an entire magazine of bullets, 5.56 millimeter steel tip, armor penetrating, green tipped bullets, an entire magazine. We call that a mag dump in the Army, a mag dump, meaning you're just laying in and pulling the whole magazine. And this guy was up on this berm shooting into a crowd that he was looking at as he was doing it. And then he responds with, woohoo! And the other guy says, oh, I think you got one. And then he responds, hell yeah, boy. That was deliberate. That was absolutely deliberate. So do I think that every engagement and every wounding or killing or shooting at a Palestinian is deliberate in the sense of wanting to cause death? No. However, I think that negligence, ignorance aren't an excuse. It's still a crime. Or were there some cases that I witnessed where I felt that it was absolutely deliberate to not only hurt but kill a Palestinian? Absolutely.
Who were the Palestinians who were being killed at these camps? Were they, or I'm sorry, not camps, these aid sites? Were they unarmed? Were they children? Who were the casualties that you witnessed?
None of the Palestinians that I saw or engaged with face to face, high-fived, hugged, shook hands with, helped. On one occasion on site number 1, there was a young girl who was kneeling down, picking up noodles off the ground, and I kneeled down next to her and helped her put noodles into her bag because there was no other food left. Those are the people that I'd experienced, people that were just trying to survive. Never did I ever see anybody armed, rifle, pistol, nothing. Now, the UG Solutions folks would come out and say, oh, well, some of them had knives. They did. Some of them did have kitchen knives that they brought because, and I witnessed, not only did I see this on occasion, I saw this every time, on these pallets, these stack of boxes that are just dumped on location, they're wrapped in a very thick layer of multiple wraps of this very thick plastic. You can't tear into it. I've tried to before also. On one of the locations, I was like, how do these people open these? Because I couldn't, so I had to take out my knife and cut it. There's no way to get through it. So these Palestinians have learned that when they come to the site, they bring a kitchen knife so they can cut the plastic. I've seen this. I've stood next to a guy. I've stood next to a Palestinian man, older teenager, who took out the knife, showed it to me and said, not threatening, but like he was showing, he was like, I'm going to cut the plastic. He cut the plastic and then he turned the knife around by the blade and handed me the handle and said, here, you can take it. And I took it and put it in a box. And that's not a weapon. That's not a threat. And to say that, oh, we saw them with knives, that gives us justification to kill them. Baloney. Unethical. So I never witnessed any threat, hostility, so the people that they're shooting at are unarmed civilians. And the people that typically get the bullets, because they're in the back of the crowds typically because they're slower, are women and children. That's a fact.
So they are firing with machine guns, armor-piercing, green-tip bullets into starving, unarmed civilians, many of them women and children, who are there to get food because they've been deliberately starved. The UN distribution system has been kicked out, and this is their only point to get food. That's what's going on.
That is correct.
I've seen the reports. I've heard you talk before. I've read the stories, and I know that intellectually. But every time I hear it again, it just shocks me. It never stops shocking my conscience. What's happening at these aid sites? You mentioned that you high-five people and hug people. Could you talk a little bit more about your interactions with the Palestinian people at the sites? What were they like?
People just like any other people. Most grateful for the limited what they were getting in the situation that they're in. Imagine the situation that they're in. Starvation, the brink of starvation. Some have already died of starvation. The entire population on the brink, if they have not already crossed over based on the definition, I guess, if you will, of a famine. And they were grateful, happy. I mean, just, I have thousands of pictures. Some of the beautiful images of just beautiful people. I have this one picture of a guy. He's over his shoulder, this sack of food. And there's a hole in this bag because that's the only bag he had. And he's hunched over and he's holding this flour all over the front of him because he was putting some flour in and the bags were broken because when they drop the boxes, it usually breaks the bags of food open. This guy's covered in flour. Once we get done, I'm going to send you some of these pictures so you can post to your viewers. I'll send them to you. They're beautiful. There's a gentleman, he's got this bag of food and he's blowing me this kiss and he's just so happy. And I never experienced any here he is right here. Sorry. Got it. There it is. Huh? I took that picture. So when I share these stories, I'm not making this up. Look at this man. Look at the joy on his face. He didn't have shoes on. He walked 10 kilometers to get here from southern Khan Yunis. Look at that. That's not Hamas. Look at that. Look at this angel. Look at her. This is the girl that I was with at site number 4 that I was kneeling down with, helping her pick up noodles that were on the ground. Look at that. I'm not making this up. I took this picture. This is a selfie. I took this picture. These aren't coming from some Hamas propaganda or some far left reporter that wants to, spread propaganda. I took these pictures. An American soldier, a West Point graduate who spent 25 years in the Army, who's not lying. Here you go. Beautiful picture. Look at this young boy. You know what's in his backpack there? Nothing. There's nothing in his backpack because he didn't get any food because he got there and all the food was gone. He was happy at least to have the opportunity because we said, he was like, oh, I didn't get any food. And we're like, hey, we'll be back here tomorrow at 8 a.m. And he was like, oh, yes, thank you. That's who we're talking about. Look at this sweet little boy here. You know what's in his backpack? Nothing. You know what he's picking up with his left hand right here? Picking up beans off of the ground. You know why his face is red? You know why he's flushed? Because he got sprayed in the face with tear gas by a UG Solutions contractor. Why? Because he was in the way. I'm not making this up.
In the way of what? What is the justification for spraying a starving child with pepper spray?
Because at that point, the UG Solutions security personnel wanted all the people back further because we were starting to slowly push them. So we would move them a few feet, move them a few feet, move them a few feet. And this little boy didn't get out of the way fast enough. So he took a face of pepper spray. Look at him. America, look at him. This little boy. What is he doing? Is he pissed off? Is he threatening me? No. With the look on his face of being tear gassed in the face, picking up beans with his bare hands, he gives me a thumbs up. Thank you. This isn't propaganda. I took this picture. Here's another gentleman. So if you don't believe me with the pepper spray, this guy got sprayed in the face with an entire can of pepper spray to the point that where he was vomiting blood. Why? Because he didn't get out of the way fast enough. This is at site number 1 on the early morning of 2 June. Look at this guy.
Oh my.
He was sprayed in the face with enough pepper spray to kill a man, practically, vomiting blood because a UG Solutions contractor sprayed him in the face because he wasn't getting out of the way fast enough. That's not, Hamas didn't take that picture. Al Jazeera didn't take that picture. I did. Look at this angel. That's Hamas. That's who we're saying deserves to die. This little girl ran off the site to the sounds of guns being fired at her feet. This girl. This man. This young boy. Looks like my son. This is site number 3. Does that look like Hamas? Does that look like someone that deserves to be shot at? Look at this young boy. This is at site number 4. Look at that kid. So anybody out there that buys the rhetoric that they're all Hamas, or that they all deserve to die, or they all deserve to starve, and that no one's starving, and this is all just some big made up conspiracy, I would say, look at yourself in the mirror and search your soul, and shame on you.
You've told some really horrific stories about the people in those pictures being sprayed with pepper spray, being shot at. How often did you witness UG Solutions, either with live ammunition or with stun grenades or with tear gas firing on these unarmed people? Was it
every day at every distribution that we did?
Would you say this was the pattern in practice?
This was the pattern in practice that had not only been inherited because of a lack of instruction, but because it was accepted and it was okay.
But what types of injuries do people sustain when they're sprayed with pepper spray, when they're hit with a stun grenade, when they're shot at?
In some cases, death.
Death.
In some cases, severe lifelong debilitation. I mean, I can't say for sure. I don't know as it a fact because I'm not an optometrist, but I'm pretty sure that man is blind. And I watched it happen, an entire can, to where the guy on the ground was getting sprayed, and myself and one of the humanitarian assistance workers was standing there. We're like, stop! Like, we were appalled. And then we helped him get up, and we walked him over to the side, and you see the person in the blue vest that was a local Palestinian humanitarian aid worker, and we're dumping water on his face and his eyes. Everything from death to permanent injury to just plain terroristic fear.
And you witnessed all of these?
Witnessed it with my eyes on location, photographed it, made videos of it. All of the photographs and videos that I have shared didn't come from somebody else. Not one other person that I said, oh, he saw that. I took the pictures and the videos. I saw it with my own eyes, heard it with my ears, smelled it with my nose, saw it.
This next question might be something you would rather avoid. If that's the case, that's okay. One of the big debates about what's happening in Gaza, there's no debates that civilians are being killed. There's no debates that civilians are being starved, is whether or not these acts arise to the level of genocide. Genocide in international law means committing any of the following acts with the intent to destroy in whole or part a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group, killing members of the group, causing serious bodily harm or mental harm to members of the group, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about their physical destruction in whole and part, imposing measures intended to prevent births, forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. Does what you know about what's happening in Gaza, based on the level of destruction that you witnessed, the level of starvation, the shooting of people at aid sites, do you feel like it reaches the level of genocide?
Well, you missed one critical, I'll add to the list.
Okay.
Forced displacement. The Geneva Conventions and their additional protocols specifically address intentional displacement, either by forced displacement, forced evacuations that violate a protected person's rights. The Fourth Geneva Convention, which I have cited many a time, prohibits this forced displacement, prohibits it. And the rules of which are further elaborated in not only international humanitarian law, but the guiding principles of internal displacement, which is a category of international humanitarian. There are specific laws for this. So back to the point that I said that these sites are built in active combat zones. You are violating the protected person's right and displacing them by making them leave. So if I'm in Khan Yunis and I go to site number 4, I can go back home because I haven't crossed either the Netzarim or the Marag corridors. But if I go to site 1, 2, or 3, I have to cross the Marag corridor into the south. I then can't go back. Once I'm south of the Marag corridor, I don't get to just go walk back home to Khan Yunis. I get sent to the Mawasi or the Nasser or the Khan Yunis camps. That is forced displacement to the T. So all the things that you've mentioned already, plus what I think is the most critical violation, the forced internal displacement, yeah, I'd call it genocide.
Mm. So I really thank you for joining us. I know we're coming close to the end of your time. I just have two questions left for you, and then I'm going to let you go. I know you've said as a retired stay-at-home dad, the highlight of your day was watching the Golden Girls and walking your dog. I want to let you get back to that, or
Yep, my
as well
son's
as
my son downstairs. I can hear him getting impatient because we I have a date to do some Legos. So
okay. I'm going to let
we
you
have
get to the
a
Legos.
we have a Lego date.
We have two questions left, and I'm going to get to the Legos. Why did you decide to come forward? And I'll do both questions at once. Why did you decide to come forward? And what should the U.S. government, from the Trump White House to the Rubio State Department to the U.S. Congress, be doing right now?
Question one: why I came forward? I have values, and I have a conscience, and I have a soul. I don't care what anybody, the world, my own mother, if she turned against me and said, "Oh, what you're saying is not true." I've seen it. I've witnessed it. Just as clear as the books on your bookshelf. It's real. Because one day, and mark my words to anybody that's been involved in this, to include the president, members of Congress, members of the Senate, just like we have studied World War II and the atrocities of World War II, one day the world is going to look back on this atrocity. My son will ask one day about this. It'll be in the history books. Dad, weren't you there? Remember when I was in second grade and you left for 60 days and you were gone? Weren't you there? Why didn't you say anything? You saw that. Why didn't you do anything? Why didn't you say anything? So what I will remind, the reason I know is because the day of truth and the day of reckoning is coming, and it is coming soon. The world is waking up to the lies. I mean, see it. The world can see it every day. More doctors, more congressmen, more world leaders, more agencies, other nations, Spain, Jordan, Germany, France, who conducted airdrops over Gaza, that have seen Gaza from above, that are appalled. So when that day comes and my son looks at me in the face and asks me about this atrocity in the world and what has happened, I can't speak for everybody, but I will be on the right side of history. So that's one reason, because I have to look myself in the face and I have to look at my children and my wife and know that what I saw is something that I cannot not talk about. And it had to be on the record. To hide anonymously behind a keyboard or behind some pseudonym on a newspaper cycle, not enough. It's just as bad as doing nothing. So coming on the record, putting skin in the game, putting my reputation and my well-being on the line, is it worth it? Absolutely, it's worth it. Absolutely. We're talking about humanity here. So what I would like to say to the president, members of Congress, any leaders out there, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation should be ended, stopped immediately. Put the funding and the resources into the UN that has the expertise. And what I remind America, the United Nations this month has been operating for 80 years. 1945. 80 years. This year in September, at the UN convention in New York City, the UN will be celebrating 80 years. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation hasn't even been operating for 80 days. 80 years. And who was one of the first nations to sign on to create the United Nations? The United States. We should back the United Nations with full resources and allow the United Nations to go in. The only reason Israel won't allow the United Nations has nothing to do with Hamas. That all the food went to Hamas has been disproven over and over and over and over again. Not only by Israeli entities, but by US entities and European entities. Disproven. So for people to say, oh, well, the UN won't deliver it. Malarkey. Israel won't let them in. To say that that the UN can't do it. Malarkey. The UN can do it and has done it. Now, what the international community should do and should force is to create humanitarian corridors that allow the humanitarian aid to go in and be distributed from hubs where it is secured rather than being delivered at the end of a gun. That would be a great start. And boy, that ain't hard. The military corridors have already been established. There's 6 of them. The Coastal Corridor, the Burma Corridor, the Nasiriyah Corridor, the Marag Corridor, the Nakhtalaz Corridor, and the corridor that they're running now that's going to bisect Gaza City from Jabalia. There's already 6 military corridors that you could easily do this from and create hub and spoke type of operations. Easily. Easily. So what I would tell the American people, members of Congress and the world, wake up. Do something. Because when the day comes and the truth is out and this box gets opened, to say you didn't know is not an excuse that you can bring forth. You know. 1, because you do know, and 2, because I'm telling you. Do not turn a blind eye to this and think that you will not be judged by history. Now is the time to stand up for humanity. This isn't a political thing. Now is the time to stand up for humanity, end this war, and deliver life-saving humanitarian aid, not just bags of dried food, fuel, propane, medicine, Pampers, hygiene products, diapers, formula, cooking oil, cooking utensils. Get the water running again. Get the electricity running again. Things that human beings deserve. I mean, I think all of those things are pretty much on the bottom of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, things that you need to live. We're not talking about, Netflix and sushi. We're talking about need. Stop with the blindly following of an ally. The United States doesn't get pulled around by the ear by our allies and told what to do. We are the standard, and we should act like it. So what I would say to all American leaders, politicians, congressmen, and the president, do something.
Anthony, thank you so much for joining us today on behalf of myself and everyone at Defending Rights Dissent. I really want to thank you not just for taking this time to speak to our audience. I know it's probably really hard to relive the things you saw in Gaza, but for coming forward and speaking out to the public and telling anyone who will listen, whether it's in the Congress, whether it's the Democracy Now! Audience or the Tucker Carlson audience, or our supporters, about what you saw. Defending Rights and Dissent has for 60 years defended the American people's right to know and freedom to act, and nowhere is that right to know more important than when our government is aiding and abetting another country's genocide. Thank you for joining us. Have a good day, and continue to speak out against this and continue to act.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak and for the platform, and thank you for all you do. And I appreciate everyone out there that is growing tired of the lies and wants the truth. So thank you.